Everyone, thanks into today's video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week or so. In today's video, the change has taken place over the weekend, so we're in a different air mass now. The air is coming down from the north. Probably been reading quite a bit in the papers this morning about the so-called polar plume that's taking place. That's one of the headlines from the Telegraph website that you're just looking at there. It certainly has turned a lot cooler. I'm not sure it's quite as dramatic as they're talking about. It is very cold, really, for the time of year, particularly in the north, and snow has fallen over the weekend across parts of Scotland down to low levels. So, yeah, we're in a different air mass, and we're going to be staying in this cool, unsettled weather really for the next week, certainly up to the bank holiday weekend. Temperatures made it up a little bit over the weekend, but I think it's going to be unsettled through the weekend. There will be rain coming and going, so probably not going to be a great bank holiday. Unfortunately, now before we get on with the charts, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all the pages to gadgetservice.com. Have a browse through widgets, and if there's any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You'll be able to go and read the articles because you're going from gadgetservice to where the article is. We get a revenue fee on what you're doing. Thanks so much for doing that. There's also video ads on those pages. They open out in the content. Once you've watched them, they'll close back up again. And these things are paying for the website, really. Thanks so much for getting involved and doing that. So this is the headline from the Telegraph website this morning. UK weather, polar plume set to blow in from the Arctic. This is the chart that I think they've taken from, it's either Net Weather or Me Just Here, and you see the extent of the cold air coming down. It is unusually cold time here. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure a polar plume makes sense. Normally I would associate a plume with air rising up. We normally talk about the Spanish plume, with the hot air coming up out of Spain across Europe into the British Isles. I'm not sure if a plume can actually drop down. Normally that would be a plunge, but maybe somebody knows. I'm not sure whether whether it's possible for a plume to go down rather than up. If you do know, let me know. I'll be very interested to hear whether a plume can, in fact, move downwards. Anyway, it is certainly turned a lot cooler, and it's going to be staying cool for the coming few days. So have a look at the charts in a moment. So just want to start with this, though, the Arctic oscillation. That's gone negative, and it's going to be staying negative for quite some time, actually. Now, the Arctic oscillation is an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere in the Arctic. It's not a driver, it's an index reflecting what the weather is doing. The red line here is the forecast chart. You can see that we are forecast to go really quite negative over the next few weeks into May. This is the 1st of May, just here, the dates are on the bottom. The Arctic oscillation is forecast to go negative, so this is telling us that we are going to be getting quite a bit of northern blocking coming along over the next week or two. Now, what's interesting about this is that we can go right back to before the start of the year, so we can go right back into December with this black line here. And you can see that the Arctic oscillation really hasn't been negative for any prolonged period anyway. There have been little dips, bit of a curve through the winter, but not really prolonged negative Arctic oscillation conditions. Going right way back in towards the start of the winter. So been in a very positive phase of the Arctic oscillation, which is why we had a relatively mild winter. We had a lot of westerly winds, and the Arctic oscillation was sort of reflecting that. But it's interesting that now we are dipping down for what looks like a relatively sustained period, actually, into sort of negative territory. It'll be interesting whether this is sort of a temporary issue, this northern blocking, or whether we are going into a different setup that's going to last quite a bit of time. If we are going into a different setup, that is going to last some time. You can see from how positive the Arctic oscillation was for many, many months back into the end of 2014. If we are going into a different phase of the Arctic oscillation, this could last into the summer. And, of course, northern blocking in summer is never a good sign if you want a warm, dry summer, because you always get, or nearly always get, low pressure travelling underneath the block in summer anyway, giving cool, wet conditions. The worst of the summer, sort of 2012, 2007, those sort of summers normally have quite a lot of northern blocking. So it'll be interesting to see whether this is just a temporary blip or whether this is something more sustained, and we won't know for several weeks, but certainly want to keep an eye on. So you can see that in terms of GFS temperature precipitation ensembles, we're significantly cooler than average now. Most of April, of course, we was well above this red 30-year average line. Now we're significantly below, and we're going to be staying that way for the rest of this week. Then the temperatures do lift up above the red line again as we go through into the second week of May. So this is the temperature scale just here, 7th of May, for example, is down there. So temperatures will stage a recovery, I think, as we get through the bank holiday weekend. Temperatures should start to pick up somewhat. This is for the upper atmosphere. Down on the surface, it might not necessarily be that obvious that the temperatures are lifting up. It's also going to be a very unsettled period. Lots of precipitation spikes coming through. You can see that on the bottom of the chart just here. So yeah, generally very unsettled and quite cool, really, up to the bank holiday weekend. I mean, perhaps getting a bit less cold, but still unsettled by the look of it as we go through into the second week of May. Temperature anomalies are coming out significantly colder than average for the coming week, 27th of April to the 5th of May. In those blue colours, as is most of Europe. So, yeah, big changes on what has taken place through most of April. If we have a look at precipitation anomaly, we're going wetter than average. So, total flip around compared to what we've had through most of April. These charts were showing above average temperatures and below average precipitation. Now we've gone to below average temperatures and above average rainfall. So a total change in the pattern has taken place, and this was predicted by the long range models, the CFS and the JMA, right at the start of the month, start of April. So I'm very encouraged by the way those long range models have performed this time. So yeah, we're in above average rainfall from the 27th of April through to the 5th of May. Going to be quite a wet week coming up. The generic charts is for GFS for a Thursday. Low pressure is just to the east of the country, putting down these cold northerly winds. Is that a northerly plunge or a northerly plume? I'll let you decide. As we go through to Friday, we're in a little bit of a cold there, so Friday could be the driest day of the week. The showers should be limited, but then as we're going towards bank holiday weekend, this is Saturday, the low pressure starts to come back in off the Atlantic, and things just go downhill really through the weekend. This is Sunday and bank holiday Monday. You see that low pressure is generally around the country, albeit the area is starting to pull up from a more southwesterly point, so we're sort of losing the chill from the north, but even so it's very unsettled still. That I do think there'll be rain coming and going through bank holiday weekend. We'll have a more in-depth look at the bank holiday probably on the events page this evening. We end up going into next week with low pressure dominating. So by day 10, 37th of May, with 7th of May, we've still got low pressure around the country. Of course, that's general election day, so that could be interesting for a turnout if it's quite wet. As we go through to the ECMWF, very similar sort of signals, low pressure around the country, and bring cold air down from the north through to the end of this week. We get through to bank holiday weekend, and high pressure tries to throw a ridge down from the north early in the weekend. These areas of low pressure then start to move in, bringing rain in from the southwest, where quite a battle takes place. And the rain probably never gets up to Scotland. But overall, that's still looking cool and unsettling bank holiday weekend. If that was winter, by the way, that would be a very snowy chart with that ridge up to the north and this low pressure trying to come in from the south. That would be a snowmaker, but it's of course a very cool unsettled looking bank holiday weekend scenario. And as we go through into next week, we just keep the pattern going really. So we've got northern blocking still in place to the north. These areas of low pressure are underneath it, keeping it generally cool and quite unsettled up to the 7th of May. So it's not a great outlook for the start of May. I think we are going to be in relatively cool and unsettled weather, in a relatively cool and unsettled scenario. And although temperatures may start to lift up a little bit over bank holiday weekend, it might not be that obvious, because I think the winds are still generally going to be coming in sort of an easterly, southeast flow, so there'll be a lot of cloud around. So even if those upper air temperatures do start to lift up, I would expect overall it's still going to feel relatively cool. And there'll be rain coming and going, I would think, through the bank holiday weekend as well. So it isn't a great outlook. And the bigger picture is whether this change in the Arctic oscillation is a temporary thing, it's only going to last a few days or a week or two, or whether we're going into a very different pattern, and if we are, that will have impacts for the summer. Right, that's it for now. Thanks very much for watching. You may notice some changes taking place on the website at the moment. Been doing a lot of work on the website. I'll have to do some more of that. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.